Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk.
Welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday episode of Grok Talk. Originally recorded on April 19th, 2014, this program features a 40-minute interview with liberty activist Jerry DeLemus live from the Bundy Ranch Standoff in Bunkerville, Nevada. As the original program was 2.5 hours long, we have edited it to fit Jerry's interview into hour 2. Jerry was recently arrested by a small army of FBI TAC teams as a result of his presence at the Bundy Ranch during the standoff, and is being detained without bail pending trial. If you'd like to learn more about Jerry's arrest or the charges, or if you'd like to donate to help support his family and his legal bills, please visit patriotjerry.com. That's patriotjerry.com.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Our other guests on this edition of Throwback Thursday are Kimberly Morin, Richard Olson, and Senator Bob Smith. We'd like to remind you that the ads and promos are the ones we originally broadcast, but they've been rearranged to fit our new programming format.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpac.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
Steve McDonald here. You ever notice how Democrats like to create problems so they can then claim to solve them? Take Medicaid expansion, for example. Even if the federal government keeps its promise to New Hampshire to pay for most of it, it'll still cost New Hampshire taxpayers tens of millions of dollars more to provide inferior care and coverage to people who, for the most part, would never have needed it if Democrats hadn't reformed health care in the first place. That's right, that real expensive reform that doesn't care if it's only affordable if you act like you don't need insurance. Well, its number one claim to fame at this point is how many more people it forced onto Medicaid. And that's only because Obamacare kicks tens of millions of people off the plan they liked and were told they could keep but couldn't. So Medicaid expansion was always part of Obamacare for a reason. Democrats knew all along that the Affordable Care Act was unaffordable and they'd need to make Medicaid bigger and more expensive. So when people got their plan kicked to the health care curb, they could still sign up for something, even if it was something as crappy as Medicaid. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Steve McDonald here. New Hampshire Democrats have been talking a lot lately about gun violence and background checks on law-abiding citizens as if they actually have anything at all to do with each other. Mayors Against Illegal Guns was here, talking about background checks, again as if they had anything to do with illegal guns. All kinds of folks from all over have been coming to New Hampshire telling us we need background checks. Well, I'm here to help. We've already got them. We've also got the lowest homicide rate in the nation. You know what we don't have? New Hampshire Democrats running for office in New Hampshire on add more background checks. This issue is so important to them, I couldn't even find the last time a New Hampshire Democrat proposed one. So I expect come 2014, they'll all be running for office on background checks. I'm Steve McDonald from Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to Grok Talk.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Rock Talk, brought to you by GraniteRock.com, New Hampshire's conservative website. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from GraniteRock.com. Rock Talk. Skip just fixed the live stream, so if you're watching online, welcome to Grok Talk. Dum-da-da-dum.
Dum-da-da-dum.
I had that off because you didn't have it on your head. Lots of news, as always. We'd like to welcome you to the program. Try to come to you every week with news and opinion you could only get from us. And this week, some of that news and opinion will include our guests, Kimberly Morin, who is a policy research conservative commentator, political activist, and she has a number of other credits that we'll announce later on. She'll be joining us at 9:30. Senator Bob Smith will be coming onto the program via telephony to talk to us about the campaign to win the primary to challenge Jean Shaheen, and we'll be talking about her. And then Jerry DeLemus will be talking to us live from the Bundy Ranch in Bunkerville, Nevada, to give us an update on the ground of what's actually happening there.
Correct. It's going to be a full-packed agenda here, and even though we seem to be just the two of us right now, Grokster Mike is on the way. We also expect Grokster Rick to be here, as well as somebody you haven't seen before, Grokster Scott Morales, who occasionally opines for us, depending on his workload and stuff. And this will be his first time on Grok Talk, so I will be giving up my headset, but still watching the regular system here to make sure that the audio and video is being pumped out through Ustream.
That's why we have these extra chairs. So it'll be embarrassing if nobody shows up. But anyway, that's okay. We'll have plenty to talk about besides that.
Well, we do already.
We do. Lots of interesting things.
Because you liked my post.
I did. And a real quick rundown of some things we're going to hit. SB 120, which is the Republican-sponsored Senate bill to create a speech cartel for the ruling class. And then we have J.P. Marzullo announced that he was going to challenge Bob Odell for his state Senate seat, and then Bob Odell decided he would retire, which is beautiful news. Republican Frank Saporetto has announced that he is going to challenge Jim Roush for his state Senate seat. Both of them are supposedly Republicans. Roush is not acting like one at all. Frank is acting more like one than ever. And, of course, the thing that really caught my attention this morning, I got up and I was reading Granite Rock to see what got posted over the night, and Skip had this fabulous post about some news that was reported in the Union Leader. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they were talking about business owners, and we're talking about the winter tourism industry, which is, of course, of extreme concern to Democrats, and Senator Shaheen in particular, who has pontificated with her vast knowledge of climate science on the doom and gloom to our tourism industry in the winter months because of global warming. Now, last winter, global warming was responsible for probably one of the best ski seasons we've ever had. We had so much damn snow that there was just plenty of skiing and lots of tourism, and they made buckets of money, and the state, of course, got some revenue from that. But there is a new doom and gloom on the horizon that is going to impair and limit and shorten our ski season, and that is?
And that is Obamacare.
That's right.
And the news is owners of some small New Hampshire businesses said at a forum Thursday that paperwork and expense are threatening the economic platforms on which their companies are built, to the point that the Affordable Care Act could trump nature. That's what first got my attention. Greg Goddard, the general manager of Gunstock Ski Area, said the requirements that health insurance to be offered to employees who are on the company payroll for 120 consecutive days or longer could mean opening the slopes later and shutting them down earlier. And he went on to discuss it has nothing to do with the snow, it has nothing to do with the equipment. In fact, it has nothing to do with other government regulations because it's actually owned by Belknap County. It's not a private concern. But Obamacare, the same Obamacare that Jean Shaheen was the 60th vote for to push this through, this U.S. federal government ambassador to New Hampshire has placed upon our heads and around our necks, is now going to start squeezing small businesses, including the same industry, the ski industry, that she's been bemoaning about, as you said, for years now.
She has. And so we decided that we needed to figure out what to call this, because this Skip called it appropriately a woman-made disaster. And this is exactly what she was afraid was going to happen, only she got it all wrong, as is natural for a Democrat.
She actually got the end result right. She just got the reason for it absolutely wrong.
So we were thinking Shaheenapogenic tourism destruction, tourism climate change. That would work, right? These are the soon-to-be underemployed that Shaheen has been looking for. If you like your tourism industry, you can keep your tourism industry. Tourism we can't believe in. You shouldn't have built that, which references something that Mr. Goddard said. They created this summer tourism attraction.
Adventure camp,
and
yeah.
He actually said, if I had known 3 years ago that this is what was going to happen, we wouldn't have even built it. So there you go.
Absolutely.
Here's Miguel. I can't see the top of his head because it's camouflaged.
In honor of the third guest this morning.
Yep, he basically said, Goddard said, some decisions his company has made in the recent years might have been quite different if the impact felt in the first months of Obamacare had been known. This is in reference to Nancy Pelosi's, we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it.
Well, we found out what's in it.
Yep.
A shorter ski season.
Yeah, 3 years ago we added a summer adventure park. He said, frankly, if I had known then what I know now, what the Affordable Care Act was about, I may not have built it. Now, I'm not sure. I take a little askance to his company because it is a completely owned entity of the Belknap County, as I said before. But still, he's making decisions as if he were basically the owner of the ski area.
Correct, and that's what his job is, isn't it? You should put the headphones on, and I'm going to turn you on before you start engaging in conversation because we won't be able to hear all the wonderful things you have to say.
Saying he won't forget. How are you?
Good.
Good morning, Mr. Mike.
I think you have that mic on. Try again.
Yep.
Yes, you have 4. All right.
Okay.
That's fine. As long as I know which headset you have.
We'll swap
4 eyes number 3 has mic number 4.
There we go. Excellent.
Something, he's absolutely right. Glasses, glasses, and glasses.
Yeah.
We can call each other 4 eyes.
Four eyes.
I haven't heard that in years.
That's 12 eyes.
The better to see you with, my dear.
All right, the eyes have it. Okay. So, yeah, that's just, when you get up in the morning and you get hot, steaming irony served to you on Granite Rock on a global warming platter, if you like.
Yes.
That's just great.
I'd much rather have hot, steaming irony than the hot, steaming stuff the administration stirs out.
Right. Well, this whole Shaheen thing is fantastic. And yes, I am going to milk this cow all the way to November because this is just too damn funny. And like I said in my post...
Are you insulting our senior senator here?
I am. And I put up a follow-up post to Skip's because it was just too good not to. And... I called, so basically in the meantime, New Hampshire won't be the only sovereign state suffering under the yoke of central planners. The Democrat Senators for Tourism Destruction Caucus will have to take their concerns to the Lightbringer and beg an indulgence for their peasants, lest the weight of this latest irony cause the voters to rise and drown them in a political defeat. So I'm hoping for that anyway, because she's not the only senator in a state that's a Democrat that has winter tourism that will be affected by Obamacare. So this guy, Goddard, isn't the only one who's going to have an impact. And that you've got to admit that all these winter states, Democrat senators, of which there are many, will have to get in their hopey-changey bus and go to the White House and go, please.
Well, not just us.
Change the 180-day restriction.
What about Udall in Colorado, for example?
Oh, yeah.
There's plenty of...
That's a winter tourism.
That's a winter tourism state as well.
What about all the Democrats in California with Tahoe?
Yep.
Well, I don't know. With so many... I mean, that is a completely Democrat state at this point. Almost every district there, except for a few around San Diego and a few up north, they're almost in a safer district as what Barbara Boxer and Nancy Pelosi are in. But
most of the state of California is a giant Democrat ghetto. You're not going to get them out. They can do whatever they want. Obviously, because the state wants to divide itself up into separate states, there are places where people don't agree, but they don't have the density that the cities have that they could possibly vote these losers out.
And that's why they want to divide into separate states, because they do not have a Republican form of government. If senators were allocated by area, and I presume they are in California, they ought to have some balance, but it doesn't seem to work.
Well, the state senator problem in California is horrible because they have the same problem as Massachusetts has with Speakers of the House.
Yeah.
All Democrats, all going to jail. Chicago's governors, another example.
Yeah. By the way, I thought this was rather cute. Scott Morales put this up. I'm going to put it up on the live stream.
Is it the picture of the car?
The picture of the car.
Yeah, I posted that on Facebook yesterday.
Now, you realize, of course, that People's Cube is a satire site, so I'm thinking that's a Photoshop.
Could be. It could be.
It may not be, but it's too good to miss.
I tried to zoom in and look and see if I could figure it out. I'm like, I don't care. It's funny.
Yeah, and
it's hilariously funny.
If you can't read it, it does say Obama is my co-pilot, and the front end of this car is absolutely mangled. So, apropos. So good for Scott for picking it up and posting it on Granite Rock.
And for those who are not familiar with it, the anti-Soviet propaganda site peoplescube.com, run by Oleg Atbashian, an ex-Soviet himself, who really knows what it's like and has lots of good life lessons to teach us.
And that, I mean, we have a few folks that have lived under the Iron Curtain for a while, and here in New Hampshire, we've talked to them. They've been on the show and all of that stuff. And they're the ones that are bringing the harbingers of our future history to be if we keep going down this path. And it's not a great thing. And yet the socialists and the progressives here in New Hampshire just keep ignoring it. You know, it's like, I just don't understand. But that's why Granite Rock is here, to fight for our liberty and our freedom as best we can.
I posted this picture on Facebook, and Scott Prevette, who's a local activist, wrote, he must have run over a dogma. And I wrote, I suspect they were swerving to avoid one. That would be the pragmatic thing to do. I wonder if this was a change they could believe in.
Yeah, so much for the change. It just kind of crackled up. Okay,
I got to drop off of there. And Mr. Olson has joined us. Welcome, Mr. Olson. So anyway, the other great news was that J.P. Marzullo announced that he was going to join the cadre of decent Republicans helping us advance a more Republican Senate by challenging Bob Odell. Bob Odell took this news the proper way, which was to say, I retire.
Yes, it didn't take much of a push, did it?
No, it was like a day. Not even 48 hours later, Bob's like, I'm out.
And by the way, I understand that All About Me, the people down there at GOP headquarters, threw an absolute hissy fit over not being forewarned that JP was going to do it.
Well, gee, that's
really?
just the vice chair.
Yes.
Well, you know, let me just interject. As the vice chair of the Republican Party, which JP is or was or whatever,
he is until at least the convention and potentially until the primary. Since there's no primary now, he can effectively stay in office until he has to start running seriously for his seat.
Put that headset on your head.
Okay.
And
Rick Olson has joined us by osmosis.
It's not
very shortly he'll be acoustically.
It's not exactly. It's not exactly news that Jennifer Horn is not the most sharing of chairmen with her vice chair. So I will save that for a couple weeks from now when we have JP on, and he may feel more likely to share. I also want to segue into something that Rick did yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before?
It was yesterday.
Yesterday?
Yeah.
I'll let you explain it. This is fabulous. This has to do with Mr. Doomberg and his newest faux movement. And Rick took advantage of an opportunity, and he's going to tell you all about it.
Well, as everybody knows, Mr. King Michael Bloomberg launched an effort where he culled the crying mommies all together about guns and his mayors against illegal guns, and I guess
Moms Demand Action.
Moms Demand Inaction. Yeah. So he culled all these groups
to wonder
together.
What sort of action the moms are looking for? But
hey, every mom's looking for a little action now, aren't they?
Moms Demand Faction. Yeah. Well.
So, anyways, to make a long story short, Bloomberg culled all these groups together and started this effort called Everytown USA for Gun Safety.
Actually, they could have milds. Moms I'd like to disarm.
Yes.
So
anyway, he launched this great big effort, but he left this huge hole in social media. No Twitter, no Facebook. And it actually started with a guy down in Texas, the founder of National Association for Gun Rights, okay, and to make a long story short, one of the Million Moms Against, I can't remember the name of the group, but they're a pro-gun group, called him up and said, hey, there's this huge hole, and he said, go for it. So she snagged that Facebook page that probably should have belonged to Bloomberg. And then overnight, all of us started our own pages, Every Town USA for Gun Safety.
In the name of state. Right.
Right.
Yours is New Hampshire,
Ours
for example.
is New Hampshire.
But every state's trying to do that.
So since we made it go live yesterday at about 11:30, we now are up to over 400 likes.
And that's just New Hampshire. And, of course, the national page, you can go like that as well.
Yeah, it's up to, I think, 40,000 now.
Right, and that's going to keep happening. We're going to take 60 seconds. We'll be right back. We're going to talk some more about guns and good stuff.
Grok Talk.
And we are back. This is Grok Talk, a production of GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative libertarian blog site where we opine on just about anything that amuses us, bringing you news and sometimes amusing stuff as well. And, of course, we have multiple opinions on every single topic under the sun, and we cover New Hampshire primarily. But we have lots of stuff to talk about today. We are in our opening segment where we talk about the news of the day, the week, and everything else. And, Mike, you were talking about having absconded ex-mayor Bloomberg's...
Rick.
Rick
did it, not Mike.
All
Rick
these guys with glasses on, you know?
That's right. Oh, wait, we got 4 more eyes.
16.
We're up to 16 eyes.
The eyes have it. Absconded social media, this is what happens when people aren't thinking in the new realms. And I was just going to add that Walter Havenstein, who is the newest candidate in the Republican primary...
For governor,
that he had his opening announcement in the Legislative Office Building here in Concord, New Hampshire, and I was absolutely taken with WMUR's media blitz that showed almost every single past New Hampshire Republican luminary standing behind him. So we know where the establishment GOP stands as far as their government successor to Gene
So we'll have
Shaheen.
to give him the same treatment that we're giving Scott Brown.
Well, I was going to say he forgot to get his name domain captured, and somebody else took that and also did the same thing on Facebook. So there's 2 avenues already gone. So there's no protective fence around him. So we've got cords all over the place.
we had to move the table down a little bit to make room for additional bodies should they appear.
They will. Kimberly's sitting outside. She decided to come in at 9:30.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, at least she's here.
She's sitting in her car in the sunshine down the side street.
Good, she's got parking. That's excellent.
That's a big help.
As the weather gets nicer, the parking gets harder to get because people come out earlier, and I've noticed that, even when I show up, the difference between showing up at 8:05 and 8:15, there's like nobody here at 8. But if I come later, all the spaces are starting to fill up, and it's like, I don't want to walk all the way up here with all that stuff, and you certainly don't. You have more stuff. So,
true.
At least she's here. We'll be talking to her in a few minutes. But anyway, back to the business at hand.
Yeah, so, politics is starting to heat up, at least for those of us who follow it intently, and we opine upon it on a regular basis. I think that the regular folks certainly aren't going to pay much attention until Labor Day anyway, so we've got all summer for ourselves.
That's true.
And we've got to up the promotion on Andrew a little bit and keep looking for real facts on
Actually,
Mr.
speaking of
Hamilton.
that, if you go to the RLCNH Facebook page, you will see a picture of Andrew Hemingway. And what you are being asked to do is that a gentleman has said that for every person who changes their profile thumbnail picture to that picture of Andrew and tags this guy's name in the picture, he will donate $5 to Andrew's campaign. So if you go to RLCNH page, or if you go to the NHLA page, which I think is where it actually started, you will see everybody has Andrew Hemingway's picture as their profile picture in Facebook. So you'll go to see, a stream of comments and updates, and they all have Andrew's face. So you could do that. You can go to Facebook, go to the NHLA page first if you can get on there, if you're a member. And if you're not, you can ask. But poke around Facebook in the conservative and libertarian community, and you will find references to it, and you are invited to participate. And you have to do it before midnight tonight for that $5 to go to the campaign, but this guy has said that he will make that donation if you follow those simple instructions.
Another use of the social media.
Correct.
Sure, that's
a good
absolutely
use.
Great.
Nobody's asked me why I changed my picture yet. Well,
Nobody
nobody that's not politically motivated.
Oh, they'll figure it out.
Maybe not.
Yeah. So, other news of the day, once again, Obama has decided to be of the mind frame that you're not the boss of me. We've got this Iranian ambassador that was supposed to come to the UN that was fingered out to be one of the folks during the Jimmy Carter administration in taking the embassy folks, our embassy folks, hostage. And now the Iranian mullahs are trying to send him here to be the UN ambassador. What happened in the House is that they passed a bill that said we are not going to allow him entry. We're not going to give him a visa. It started actually in the Senate with Ted Cruz. It passed in the Senate. It got to Obama's desk.
All caps.
And, this is what drives most of us crazy because the Constitution says will faithfully execute. Upon signing the bill into law, he immediately says
he's not bound by it.
He is not bound by the law. It's merely advice. You know something?
Well, here's a piece of free advice. Faithfully execute is what we do to traitors.
No, we don't seem to do that anymore either, and that's part of the problem. But I think that's the summary of Obama's presidency. He does believe that he's a king, that he is not bound by the Constitution. Actually, he talks about the Constitution, but in his mind, he can read the same words as you and I, but it all comes out differently. He reads a completely different mantra into the Constitution and the Declaration and everything there. But to actually come out and say it, it's one thing if you've got this huge bill, and I blame George Bush for really putting these signing statements on steroid, into the public eye. But Obama's taken it to just a couple order of magnitudes higher level.
It's not just that.
And it's usually, well, hold on. It's usually on the big bills, and you're just taking little sections of it.
Is just it.
This is a simple little bill.
The signing statements and the executive orders have all gone. It's what they're doing with them.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, okay, George Bush had signing statements and executive orders, but Obama is changing law wholesale, whole cloth, just cutting it out. She can sit over between you, actually, would probably be better. And that's just wrong. And it's just, I was going to say I'm working on a post that has something to do with this whole psychology, and it's really, it's about progressive mythology, and I won't go into it in detail because we don't have time. But the way they perceive the world, facts, reality, the truth, have no bearing whatsoever. The whole point is the idea. It's what I think it was Sorrell said. It's not, everybody knows Marxism doesn't work. It's the mythology of Marxism that they use to create the movement necessary to get people to act the way they want. So, everything the Democrats do, Obamacare, is a mythology. It's a complete train wreck, but the mythology of Obamacare is like, the whole, and everything's like that. So, they're crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah, and for the first time ever, a Democrat representative to the U.S. House finally said, we took over 1/6 of the economy. First time anybody said that. We on the right have been saying that for years and years and years, but it finally happened. And he said it in such a way that's like, yeah, that's what we do in government all the time. We just take stuff over. And just such deadpan words. I just sat there and go, yeah, right, this is just what government ordinarily does. And he just so blithely said, yeah, we're going to have bumps in the road as we take over 1/6 of an entire economy.
Couple bumps.
Couple bumps.
Yeah, can we call them moguls?
Moguls, yeah. And I got news for you. They ain't Olympics level skiers either.
No, they're not. They're not. What was that thing was it Mike that put up? Created by geniuses, run by idiots.
Oh, yeah. I mean, wasn't that fabulous? Biden gets himself an Instagram account, sends selfie from inside the presidential limousine of himself and Obama looking dumb. In fact, one commenter over on, I think it was Twitchy, said that the fisheye effect made Obama look like the donkey from Shrek.
Oh, wonderful! But
another ass-in-ein picture.
Yes,
mm-hmm.
I guess Biden must have had a little bit more power to do that ever since the Red Sox were there. No more selfies with Obama. So, but then again, Biden got the slap down anyways because Obama refused to say whether or not he'd support him in his presidential candidacy. It's like, good, put him on point. Put him on that tightrope. Who are you going to go with there, Obama? Biden or Hillary?
Biden never got more than 4% of Democrats to back him in any primary when he ran. So the odds are pretty good that Obama's not going to back Biden.
Well, a couple of cycles ago, we did interview Biden when he was just a senator. And he did say, you guys are doing good work because you're going to help elect the next president. And we did because it was Bush, not him.
Well, I think you guys
But
are
again, I look back at that and go, yeah.
Hey, I think you guys are being a little tough on Biden. We haven't had comedy in the White House since never. Like what we're having now.
That's true. He is like
the
a
Boston Marathon, bombing.
Oh, yes.
Worth it,
He should have a laugh track behind him.
He should. Yeah.
I thought he did.
I mean, really, literally, instead of a teleprompter, since he just talks and talks and talks, he should have a laugh track. That would be funny. We could just add one. We should just add one. We should take his speeches and just add a laugh track behind him. That would be the best way to go.
Well, you've got the soundboard. You've got the new jingle box.
I do, which I'm using right now.
Make one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We are.
Well, I got all this free time now that the ski season's going to be shortened. You ever see me ski? I haven't skied in 20 years. If I skied, I'd probably break something. All right, this is Grok Talk. I'm Steve McDonald here with everybody, and we'll be right back with Kimberly Morin from Examiner.com. Welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday episode of Grok Talk. Originally recorded on April 19th, 2014, this program features a 40-minute interview with liberty activist Jerry DeLemus live from the Bundy Ranch Standoff in Bunkerville, Nevada. We're back. It's Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Watch the waving thumbs on the live stream as we adjust the audio. Please take some time to visit cnht.org and GraniteGrok.com. There's donate buttons everywhere. Click one and help support your local grassroots activists. We'd like to welcome you back. We are now moving forward after our first segment where we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. You'll just have to wait for the podcast if you missed it. But we'd like to bring in our next guest, Kimberly Morin, who is a policy researcher, conservative commenter, and political activist from the Seacoast. She has all kinds of things going on. We have the Political Buzz segment on Girard at Large. We have a similar segment on Speak Up with Kevin Avard. And, gosh, you do all kinds of stuff. You're the Manchester Political Buzz Examiner, Informed Women's Network. Very, very connected to the goings-on in the political stream of New Hampshire. Yeah. And we'd like to welcome you. And I got to turn this down because I'm tireless to do it. Okay, I got to figure out which headset. You're on his. Okay, there we go. Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
So you posted something yesterday afternoon I think we should start with. It had to do with a UNH poll.
Yeah.
That came out. Tell our listeners about this poll and your concerns.
Well, this poll, believe it or not, I was alerted to it by Daily Kos.
Wow, you're confessing to that, hey?
It was on Twitter in the New Hampshire. Somebody posted it in the New Hampshire Twitter feed, and they disagreed with it. And apparently, they have issues with UNH polls often.
We do, yeah.
But so I went. I wanted to look at it, of course, because that's
what you do. That's what you do. That is what you do.
Well, so I went and looked at it because I had written about the last poll that they took, and the numbers between this one. I didn't even look at the whole thing. I just looked at the Shea Porter numbers. They have her approval at 45%. And it was 39% last time. So I'm a numbers geek. So I put all the things, the numbers comparing in a spreadsheet and looked at the changes and the shifts. And holy cow. I'm looking here. Her approval dropped with Democrats by 9%, but it jumped with Republicans by 17%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that number. I'm like, yeah, no.
No. 17% with Republicans. 17% with Jim Roush and Bob O'Dell, maybe.
Yeah, and Stiles.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then some of the other numbers were weird. I can't even see. Sorry. Some of the districts. like North, they split it out by like North Country, Central Lakes. And when you compare the favorability in the North Country, it dropped for her by 23%, but in another district, it rose by that much. So the numbers are just cracked. There's definitely something wrong. Either someone screwed up.
So if you like your shape order, you can keep your shape order, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's crazy. Well, we're not a big fan of university professors and experts who put out these polls because, as a rule, they usually have a specific purpose, and reality isn't one of them.
Well, you got to look at those New England college polls.
Those
instead.
are the best ones. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh, don't get me started on that one.
That's a poll. That's an answer looking for some results to compare it to.
Well, that's the first thing I do when I see these polls. I look at the question first, and New England college push polls every time. And then the other thing I look at is who they surveyed. The number of people, if it's an accurate type of or realistic picture. And typically UNH does poll a decent amount of people comparatively throughout New Hampshire. Republicans, Independents, and Democrats.
It's usually like 800, or it's not just like a neighborhood.
This one was under 300.
Under 300.
And they polled 11 under 300. So they polled 11 more Democrats than normal, and they polled 47 less Independents and Republicans. So that's probably why this is weighted.
You know why the Republicans they're probably people who were Democrats that registered Republicans so they could screw up our primary.
Well, I think that any party worth its salt would be kicking these people out. The problem is that our party is not worth its salt.
That's why there's us.
That's why there's us.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've had a pretty busy week. There's some good things going on. What do you think about the whole J.P. Bob Liddell thing? Yes. So I actually wrote in parentheses, happy dance.
I did. That's what I was doing when I found out. I was like, clapping my hands.
I mean, A, J.P. says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run. I'm going to run against Bob. B, next day, Bob says, I'm going to retire. It's like, we have about a dozen more of those. Please, primary somebody.
Do it now, yeah. Well, that's another thing I found out. I saw on Twitter. See, Twitter. I get the news quicker on Twitter than I do on anywhere else.
It is very useful for that.
I saw that, and of course, I ran and posted it everywhere, too, and that's, happy dance on that one, too.
Happy dance. Okay, and then what else we got this week? What have you been looking at this week? Let's talk about what you're paying attention to.
Huh. Did you hear what Rep. Vail did?
Yes. I added it. You guys can't hear me on the screen, but I added it to my Progressives: The Proper Role of Government.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Oh, didn't I? I forwarded that to you. That's right. Okay, I know what you mean. So please tell. Do tell.
So clearly a crazy left-winger in Nashua posted on her official Facebook page that, talking about how the Free Staters are bad, whatever, and she said freedom is maxed out in New Hampshire. Any normal thinking person would think she's insane.
I was just saying this morning when I was drinking my coffee to my wife, I have way too much freedom.
Yeah. Yeah, my freedom is maxed out. I can't get any more.
I got people telling me that I'm 50 and I need maternity care and breast cancer exams, and I don't need them, but I have to pay for them.
And when you have to put your headlights on, and if you can use a cell phone or not.
Right, and that's just a tiny little sliver of that iceberg. We have way too much freedom. Way too much. I know they think we do.
Yeah, exactly. So she said that, and then she had said it like a couple days before, and then I noticed it. And so, you can see when people comment. So I commented, called her a nanny stater. Like, you're a nanny stater. You oppose free staters. You want increased spending, increased taxes, and less freedom. And she said, she had said in her post, you can look at my record. So I did. Somebody, a little birdie, helped me out and gave me a list of all her bad votes. Increased spending, increased laws, take away our freedom.
She has it posted at ManchesterExaminer.com. It's a very impressive list. It's neatly organized. It's like the who's who of progressive moonbat voting. It really is. I mean, if you had...
And this was a progressive moonbat, or was it one of our rhinos?
No, it's
a
progressive
moonbat.
Yeah, there is a little bit of a gap between them.
Sometimes. Depends. Sorry.
It's okay.
So I posted that, and then the next day, she deleted her Facebook page. And she locked her tweets on Twitter.
Oh, see, we love this because we've been doing this to the vote fraud people. When they take their LinkedIn page down, that's a huge win.
Yeah.
So, yes, your goal is to this is what they do. And see, they try to intimidate our speech. They try to take it away from us. SB 120 is an example coming from the Republican side that feeds into a Democrat obsession. But, everything they do is about making us shut up so that they don't have to deal with us. And then they're perfectly honest about what they believe, and then you challenge them, and they run away.
Yeah. Well, what my point is if you don't have the integrity to stand up and speak to your votes, you shouldn't be a rep. Honestly, if you have a vote that you shouldn't be voting for things that you can't explain or explain to your constituents why. She had not one, I think maybe one person supporting her on her page. Everybody else was...
As a good example of that, I posted the HRA scores came out for the midterm, for the rest of this session so far, and I posted everybody under 70% that was Republican or Democrat. Well, obviously, not all the Democrats, just all the Republicans, of which 2 were Democrats captured in that screen capture. And there was a lot of them. There's a lot of Republicans that are under 70%, and there's more than 10 or 12 that are under 50. So, that's our Rhino report. We're going to, Rick's going to take that. Rick's going to take that, and he knows what to do with it because that's what he does.
We absolutely need to do that.
But to her point, one of the guys on the list who had 60.9.7% or something, he's a libertarian. Probably because he's got good NHLA scores, which means that there's a couple of issues in the Republican platform that as a libertarian he wouldn't support anyway. And he actually came out and said to me on Facebook, he says you can primary me if you want, but I look at the Constitution and I vote, and he stood up for his votes.
Yep.
And that's good. So now I told him, I said, I will go look at your votes and I will see where we disagree. And that's what you do. This guy came up as under 70% according to the HRA, but he stood up for what he votes for, and he says, I look at the Constitution. That's the way I vote. Now, I can go look at his votes, and I can go look at the Constitution, and I can go, yeah, you did. And then I can decide for myself where we disagree. And then we can have a conversation about that. And the Democrat runs away.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. I just wanted to, since I've given up my headset, just
it's actually watching his skin move while he's like, I gotta say something.
The bottom part of that score that you put up, where they're voting 30%, 35%, you'd look at them and go, these are great Democrats. They're voting 60, almost 70% with the Democrats. I just wanted to remind people, because of what Scott Brown, who is running for U.S. Senate in the Republican primary, said himself, I vote independent. I vote 50-50. No, when the Hill decided to go after and look at your votes, you did 22% the first year, you did 46% the second year, and then you voted with the Democrats 62% of the time. So if Republicans here in the state of New Hampshire want to know where he sits, look at those HRA scores that Steve posted up. Go to the bottom of the list, and if he had been a New Hampshire state rep, that's where he would have been.
Here's the
by
list.
His own actions.
Here are the Republicans who are under 50%.
Yes.
Charles Takazian.
Oh, that's not a shocker.
David Kidder.
Oh, there's a shocker.
Robert Elliott.
He's an old veteran of the Rhino Report. He's been up there twice.
All these names are very familiar. James Grenier.
Yep.
Carol Crawford. Abul Khan.
What?
Yeah, he's from Rochester.
Okay. Ronald Belanger. Priscilla Lockwood. Timothy Copeland and Carolyn Gargas, who are always.
They're veterans of the Rhino Report.
And here we go. These last 3, okay, last 4, Belanger, Lockwood, Copeland, Gargas, voted with their own party 40%, 39%, 39%, and 39.1%. Okay, that means they're 70% Democrats, which means on the Democrat side, if you were an 80, 20, 70, 30 person, they're a good Democrat for you.
These are the kind of people that I caught a year or two ago at a town Republican meeting discussing how to get away with raising the gas tax, not whether it was a bad idea.
Yeah, well, that's it. We have this global warming thing. Let's raise the taxes and we'll pay for, I don't know, whatever.
Did they run as Republicans in a district just to win?
They've been running for years. Gargas and Lockwood and those folks, they get elected every single session. I mean, I don't think they've been properly primaried out. I mean, we got rid of a lot in Amherst and Bedford and a few other towns where some people snuck in, and they've been primaried out. A couple of them tried to run as independents, and they got nothing. But, that's what we need to do. We need a solid libertarian conservative candidate who can articulate the very simple facts. This is a state versus local argument. My job is to go to Concord to protect you from the federal government if I can, and to protect you from the spenders in Concord if I can, so that you keep your money and your power as local as possible, because that allows you to decide that if you want to have some left-wing moonbat progressive town, you can have one. It's your town. You vote that way. You convince the people in your town to make that argument. Don't run to Concord and sneak around and pretend to be a Republican while you're taking their money and sending it to Concord where you will never get any use out of it. Mm-hmm. And those people need to be primaried out. It's a local control argument. Anybody can make it.
Londonderry is a classic example. You have a candidate over there. When you call her on her voting record, she shuts you down. She excludes you from her Facebook page. And Representative Lisa Whittemore.
Oh, yes.
You want to talk about a Kool-Aid slurper right there. I'm telling you, wow, she is as left as the day is. You think she came right out of the boroughs of New York City? That's left she is.
John Burt was telling me Dennis Fields is another one of them. He's at 59.8%.
I always see his name voting with Democrats.
Is she a straight Rousseauian French commie?
I don't know, but I know.
I saw her. She was trying to justify the increasing the gas tax.
Yes.
And she got slammed for it. And then she started blocking people.
Yeah, it started shutting everybody
out.
out.
I'm really not interested in a debate.
Her argument was stupid, and it was wrong. So,
We're going to come... go ahead. Sorry.
Same with the guns, I mean... you can always count on them for a stupid argument.
Well, one of your posts that you boosted, it had finally attracted some outside moonbat nut job. Well, you got to vote for Congress as to vote for background checks and blah, blah, blah. Like, why can't your state do that? Why does Congress have to do it? Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take 60 seconds-ish, and we will be right. Hold that thought back.
Welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday episode of Grok Talk. Originally recorded on April 19th, 2014, this program features a 40-minute interview with liberty activist Jerry DeLemus live from the Bundy Ranch Standoff in Bunkerville, Nevada. As the original program was 2.5 hours long, we have edited it to fit Jerry's interview into hour 2. Jerry was recently arrested by a small army of FBI TAC teams as a result of his presence at the Bundy Ranch during the standoff, and is being detained without bail pending trial. If you'd like to learn more about Jerry's arrest or the charges, or if you'd like to donate to help support his family and his legal bills, please visit patriotjerry.com. That's patriotjerry.com.
Hey, we were talking about this whole Roush thing earlier and how he's going to get primaried, and then of course Bob Odell, and I forgot to play this that I did. I didn't have time to do this for Mike last week, but I had time to do it this morning.
Love it.
I very quickly edited so that we would have it, because hopefully we'll be playing it a lot. Not very long. It's like 8 more seconds. So, welcome back to Grok Talk. And do you still have your thoughts, sir? Or have I derailed it?
No, I actually have a couple of thoughts. So,
I'm sure you have more than a few.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Right. So we were talking about SB 120 and the Incumbent Protection Act.
We did hint at it.
Of New Hampshire. Limbaugh, these idiots, they're not to be trusted with free speech, and I've been trying to stop them since 2002. Sorry. They're a real bad imitation of Senator McNasty himself.
Which one?
McCain.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who, of course, together with a Democrat, conspired.
It's got to be more nasally, more like, Burgess Meredith, the Penguin in Batman in the 60s. That's what.
Hey, John McCain. Okay, we would like you to donate for the John McCain impression lessons.
That wasn't good.
So
but
anyway, your point.
My point is that he, along with Russ Feingold, conspired to restrict our freedom of speech by putting all sorts of difficult and tricky limits on how you could spend money to publish advertisements, print pamphlets, and generally get your point of view out, pro or anti a candidate, or even just pro or anti a point. And they keep trying to tighten those restrictions, and the people keep fighting back. And even with a bunch of freshly minted liberals on the Supreme Court, we seem to be doing okay, because first Citizens United got struck down, and now this year a further block in the wall of restrictions on free speech got chipped out, and basically they took away some of the money limits. And that's how it should be. How the heck do you think the founders promoted the revolution? How do you think Thomas Paine got his ideas out? You think common sense just printed itself? Somebody spent money or donated time.
There is another work session coming up Thursday, April 24th, on SB 120, which is the umbrella of the latest attack on free speech. And I'm going to be writing about it every day, beginning Monday again, because we need to talk about this. I hope you are. It's an issue that we really need to make them pay for.
Well, they can't do it for certain organizations because the federal law permits certain things for 501c3s and 4s. But so it's going to be just regular if you want to have an nonprofit organization. If you're one person, they're going to shut you down, or they're going to make you show who's giving you money. Like, okay, so these guys don't have to do it, but my little mom and pop organization trying to fight legislation or whatever is going to have to show all my donors. Yeah, that worked out really well for the CEO of Mozilla and other people. We've already seen what the left does to these people.
Well, I've said it again and again and again. It is the I'm going to call it a speech cartel now, because what they're basically doing is institutionalizing political speech within a small cabal of experts, political parties, PACs that already exist, lobbyists and lawyers who are all tied to those PACs and run the entire lobbying universe, and any of the 501c3s and 4s that are already embedded in the system. The left has tons of them. And all this really does, and they have the money and the resources that they can actually cheat the system and afford the fines. So they really have a significant advantage over people who are now going to say, I, as a business owner, want to remark on this bill or on this candidate with regard to how they are spending the money that they take from me in taxes. And so this person now is limited in their ability to do that. They have to jump through hoops. Yep. They have to make sure that they are following specific rules to engage in political speech. Now, I wrote this and I haven't posted it yet, but think about this. These people are taking our money and they are spending it to enact legislation which will be enforced with our money, which will then prohibit us from using our money to keep them from spending our money.
That makes my head spin.
Right,
yes.
And that is exactly what this is.
But he actually constructed that to make your head spin. But it's exactly the point.
Yeah.
And why the heck should we pay any attention to this at all? The law is unconstitutional on its face by New Hampshire Constitution and the federal Constitution, and I think we should just ignore it and keep on writing about them. And if, where possible, even advertise against them, and let's see if we can get them to blow up.
Well, at this point, the last hearing had people at it that spoke out in objection. Enough people that they didn't have enough voices supporting it that they felt comfortable moving forward, so they had to schedule another hearing. So to those of you within my voice and my earshot or whatever, you guys need to plan or make arrangements with people who are going. There's a Facebook page on this, okay, on SB 120, run by Michelle Lavelle, I think, and you need to go find it so that you know who's going to be there, if you can be there, who's going to speak, if you can speak. We need more people. What time? I'm trying to avoid the sneezing. Thursday, April 24th.
Jeez.
1 p.m. to 2:30. Yeah.
Shrapnel?
Yep. Thank you. I have a DNA sample.
Wow, that far away too. Yeah. You know,
pretty good.
I told you I was a sniper.
Great. I thought
I wasn't kidding about that either.
He does have really good aim. I've been wounded.
That would have been a mortal shot if it was lead.
A little bit more to the left, and I would have had it on my glasses. Squirrels. So Skip did this last week too. Yeah. He's such a jolly fellow. Anyway.
You know what the funny part about it is? I was working so hard to keep it in.
Thursday, anyway.
That doesn't work well.
I may have to de-amplify that on the feed. Thursday, April 24th, from 1 to 2:30, there is the next session on this issue. And I don't have the LOB room number, but we'll find it and post it.
Yeah, they usually don't post until the last 5 minutes. They're good like that.
It's like a moving crap game. You gotta, yeah.
You need the secret password.
Walt sent me. Okay. And you guys need to get down there, and you need to, we've written a lot about it. I'm sure Kimberly's written a lot about it. Educate yourself about this. I've written so much about free speech and how these are all violations, and really the only people they protect are incumbents. The only people they really protect, like the People's Pledge. All that does is funnel money into political campaigns directly so that they control the message. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do anything else. It doesn't prevent third-party intervention. When we talked about it last week, when Morin and Brown did it last year, most expensive campaign ever for a Senate seat anywhere in any state. You're telling me that all that money just came from local? No, it's all outside money funneled through the campaign. So now the campaign controls the message. That you absolutely do not want that under any circumstance.
No, and it's national money, and they're bought and paid for, and they don't represent their states. And, let us go back to the arguments for the 17th Amendment, which said that those smoke-filled back rooms in those state capitals were corrupt and couldn't produce worthy senators to represent the states, and that this was going to be so much better and cleaner.
Yeah, they're all in D.C. now.
Yeah, just like everything else that progressives propose, it's always more corrupt and less workable than the alternative that preceded it.
Okay, what else we got? We got a couple minutes left. Got anything else working? You got any stories you're working on? Anything we should be looking forward to? You can tell people where they can find you, how they can reach you, where they can see you.
Don't come see me.
Don't come see you. No, I mean, well,
joking,
Gerard at Large.
I'll be
speak
I'm
up.
Political Buzz segment every Monday morning at 8:20 on Gerard at Large, where I'm usually talking about legislation that's going on for that week, so people know what's going on. It'll be SB 120 this week. Mm-hmm. And then I do a weekly segment with Kevin Avard, which is National Access TV. Again, same thing, talking about legislation. Actually, next time I've already decided I'm going to talk about the national legislators and my little friend Rep Vale, my little buddy.
Maxed out on freedom.
Yeah. So
I've got a freedom hangover.
I'm going to start doing that, reporting the legislation and how people are voting, and I don't care what party they're from. I already do anyway, but I want people need to know. That's my big thing. People don't know what's going on. They don't have no idea what the legislature is doing. They have no idea what the legislation is, and it's easy. It's only usually a couple pages, sometimes one sentence, but that one sentence can take all kinds of freedoms away. So that's my goal, is to just keep informing people. And, so they start waking up maybe and pay attention and say, oh, wait, I don't like that. And, they'll call their reps, they'll call their senators, and they'll say, no, don't do that. Like the Second Amendment activists do. We do that with gun votes. You can get people easily riled up for that. But other stuff, people just don't seem to pay attention to. The Second Amendment stuff, yes, that's really important.
And it's, we're inside the sausage factory, so everybody we talk to is aware, for the most part, of these things. And then there's, they're aware of the issues that are important to them, and then we have the ability to put other issues in front of them that then they go, oh, I got to look at that.
Right.
And that's really, the emphasis is on trying to expand that base, because the majority of voters don't follow what we do, and they aren't inside the sausage factory, and they don't view the political world or the real world through the lens that we are forced or have forced ourselves to look through. And so to have Political Examiner, to have Examiner.com, to have Granite Rock, to have the Londonderry Fish and Game Club, and all the stuff that you guys do, and the activism and the information and the sharing. And you get to reach these people, and then you expand their range of issues so that they begin to look outside their little... Well, November is coming. That's
oh my
awesome.
God, I want one of those.
Talk to Greg Moore. That's an old AFP shirt.
Yep.
Well, that's the thing, and it's, if you just inform one person who didn't know something before, they tell someone else. It has a domino effect. They tell someone else, and they tell someone else. And, people will ask me, why do I argue with idiots? I argue with idiots not because I'm going to change the idiot's mind, but somebody else might see and say, oh, wait a minute, she's right. And I've had that happen. I've had someone say to me, oh, wow, thank you, I didn't know that, who was an independent, but they saw me arguing with a leftist.
Yeah, that's really hard, because I've gotten to that I shall not suffer fools stage, so I don't bother anymore.
I like it. It's kind of fun. It's like a hobby.
I don't spend a lot of time with that, but when I do, they run away eventually.
One of my debating partners is a Scandinavian socialist. He's quite fun.
I bet he is.
I'll have to get him on by phone sometime.
All right, we're coming
I
up.
can tell you about Scandinavian socialists.
All right. Kimberly, Morin, thank you. We'll be
Thanks,
right back
guys.
with Bob Smith. This is Grok Talk.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Grok Talk.
Excellent. Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Grok Talk.
Welcome to this week's Throwback Thursday episode of Grok Talk. Originally recorded on April 19th, 2014, this program features a 40-minute interview with liberty activist Jerry DeLemus live from the Bundy Ranch Standoff in Bunkerville, Nevada. As the original program was 2.5 hours long, we have edited it to fit Jerry's interview into hour 2. Jerry was recently arrested by a small army of FBI TAC teams as a result of his presence at the Bundy Ranch during the standoff and is being detained without bail pending trial. If you'd like to learn more about Jerry's arrest or the charges, or if you'd like to donate to help support his family and his legal bills, please visit patriotjerry.com. That's patriotjerry.com.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency. Well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Our other guests on this edition of Throwback Thursday are Kimberly Morin, Richard Olson, and Senator Bob Smith. We'd like to remind you that the ads and promos are the ones we originally broadcast, but they've been rearranged to fit our new programming format.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpack.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
Steve McDonald here. You ever notice how Democrats like to create problems so they can then claim to solve them? Take Medicaid expansion, for example. Even if the federal government keeps its promise to New Hampshire to pay for most of it, it'll still cost New Hampshire taxpayers tens of millions of dollars more to provide inferior care and coverage to people who, for the most part, would never have needed it if Democrats hadn't reformed health care in the first place. That's right, that real expensive reform that doesn't care if it's only affordable if you act like you don't need insurance. Well, its number one claim to fame at this point is how many more people it forced onto Medicaid. And that's only because Obamacare kicks tens of millions of people off the plan they liked and were told they could keep but couldn't. So Medicaid expansion was always part of Obamacare for a reason. Democrats knew all along that the Affordable Care Act was unaffordable and they'd need to make Medicaid bigger and more expensive. So when people got their plan kicked to the health care curb, they could still sign up for something, even if it was something as crappy as Medicaid. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Steve McDonald here. New Hampshire Democrats have been talking a lot lately about gun violence and background checks on law-abiding citizens, as if they actually have anything at all to do with each other. Mayors Against Illegal Guns was here, talking about background checks, again as if they had anything to do with illegal guns. All kinds of folks from all over have been coming to New Hampshire telling us we need background checks. Well, I'm here to help. We've already got them. We've also got the lowest homicide rate in the nation. You know what we don't have? New Hampshire Democrats running for office in New Hampshire want to add more background checks. This issue is so important to them, I couldn't even find the last time a New Hampshire Democrat proposed one. So I expect come 2014, they'll all be running for office on background checks. I'm Steve McDonald from Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to Grok Talk.
Grok Talk.
It is not Rush Limbaugh. It is not trying to be Rush Limbaugh. It is Grok Talk. But I like this song, and it had occurred to me that I had not yet used it. Your mic's on.
Yeah, it's
You may
great.
interject.
It's great.
I like the song a lot, so I figured I should play it.
And we aspire to excellence in broadcasting, or at least to truth in reporting.
Yeah. I don't know. We have 7.1 million listeners, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so Skip is trying to get old Jerry. He's not picking up his phone. We did suspect this might happen. But Jerry is on scene, and he has been for at least a week or so, at the Bundy Ranch in Bunkerville, Nevada. He's been assigned to homestead security duty there, and he's working with others, and it's a great story. A lot of confusion about what's really going on there, and we can certainly talk about that. I mean, I did see that Snopes debunked the Chinese solar farm thing, but we already knew that because it's a domestic solar farm thing. And anyway,
yeah, and that doesn't alter the fact that there's a picture only a few months old of Reed joining in a groundbreaking only a few miles away from the Bundy Ranch. And also, the claim was never that the feds wanted the Bundy Ranch to plant the solar panels. They wanted the Bundy Ranch because, in the weird way that federal environmental wacko regulation works, if you take a piece of land here to fry some birds, you've got to grab a piece of land somewhere else to not fry birds.
They call that mitigation, yes.
Yes.
Yes, I know you're familiar.
I would call mitigation the same thing that Clive and Bundy would call it. We disarm all the federal agents. They have no right to be armed. They are a standing army, which is explicitly forbidden.
I was explaining it to my wife because she wasn't, she doesn't follow politics like we do, and I told her, I said, well, here's what it comes down to. You got a guy whose family's been raising cattle on this land, grazing them for 100-something years, right? And so they take care of the land. The land is in good shape. The cattle are in good shape. People buy the cattle, cows. We have meat. It's a service that we provide. It's necessary. It's useful, and so on and so forth. I said the government wants to. They've kicked all the other ranchers out, right? And
and he's the last man standing. And it's not even about the grazing fees.
It's not.
Well, it's the grazing fees are a convenient hook to drag him into court.
What I told her was that he has no problem paying them if he's paying the state or the county. He doesn't really think the federal government's got any business. 87% of Nevada is federal land.
Well, it's like what you said about SB 120, where they take our money and they use it to pass legislation to stop us from spending our money on things that we want to spend it on, and they use our money to enforce that legislation. The same thing. Why would Clive and Bundy want to pay the Bureau of Land Management to support and feed their standing army, which they then turn against him? It's like feeding a pack of Rottweilers in the neighbor's yard, knowing that any day he could open the gate and have them eat you.
Did Jerry not recognize the number, maybe, and he just isn't picking up?
Yeah, why don't you call from your cell phone, Skip?
Yeah, do that and then let him know and see if we can get him on the phone, because this is an important segment that I promoted that may have attracted some live stream traffic that we won't have if he doesn't show up.
Right, and let me also add that a couple of days ago, Stuart Rhodes, who is the president and certainly one of the founding members of Oath Keepers, who is on site in Bunkerville, Nevada, interviewed both Jerry DeLemus and one of the Nevada legislators who is out there, a lady.
And that's posted on Granite Rock.
And I grabbed those videos and put them on Put them on Granite Grok.
Yeah, I'm going to call you for our interview.
So they're already up there, and you can see Jerry in his own words. What is completely clear is that Jerry, like most of the people that are down there, are not domestic terrorists, but are in fact doing everything they can to keep the peace. And it is the feds who showed up in overwhelming force with brutal methods, destroyed property, destroyed cattle. But Skip now has located Jerry, and we're going to have him online in a moment. Next up, I'm actually putting up a post of Who Owns the West, along with a nice piece by a Persian. Notice Persian, not Iranian. When they self-identify as Iranians, you've got a problem. A Persian who is schooling the United States on the constitutional meaning of who owns the West. He is, in fact, the Tennessee director for the 10th Amendment Center. And I'll have that post up shortly.
Excellent. Rick, what do you think?
Well, I think this stopped being about ranches and fees a long time ago when the federal government showed up, the BLM, with all their armies. So, well, anyways, we go to Jerry.
Jerry DeLemus is with us live from Bunkerville, Nevada. Jerry, good morning.
It's Bunkerville.
Bunkerville, yes.
Yeah, Bunkerville. Yep.
Good to have you on. How's the weather this morning in Bunkerville, Nevada?
It's actually beautiful. It'll warm up a little later, but it's pretty clear skies and it's beautiful scenery. It's it's a lot like Afghanistan, to be honest with you, but it does have its own beauty.
So you're there, so you know what's important at the moment. Why don't you share with us your current observations of the situation?
Well, one of the things I do know is they're stacking up U.S. Ranger cars and Fed cars and down in Las Vegas. And they've probably got 2 hotels, parking lots about stacked up as full as they can get with them. So it leads me to believe they're thinking of doing something, and not quite sure what. But which makes you a little nervous being up here. And the interesting thing is with Mr. Bundy, is if they had some charge to arrest him for, which he hasn't broken any law, is they could just drive one of the local police up because they know him, and go knock on the door, and if they want him to go to jail, he'd go. And he's told them that.
And he's told the whole nation that.
But rather than that, as they're gearing up for, it looks like for war, with that many officers out there, I mean, I don't know what other reason they'd have him here. And it's the same crowd that was giving him a hard time last time when they took that 600,000 acres away from him. So, it makes you a little nervous. Our encampment, which is the oddest darn thing that I got put in charge of it. Actually, since I have been put in charge of it, I moved it the first day I was here, and then we're just stacking people up in here. Like mad, there are volunteers coming from all over the country, and as they know, there's a need to stand up for the Constitution and for people and families like the Bundys who are just the salt of the earth. So, and they know it can get bad, and because I'm real clear with them on that. Not that we would ever fire the first shot, because everybody knows that, but our ROEs are real explicit on that. And to be nice to all law enforcement, and if they're thirsty and you're standing there, offer them a water, And the local law enforcement guys are outstanding. They're great. Their kids go to school with the Bundy's kids, and they've known each other. The Bundys have been on this property for 140 years. So it's the federal government that's the problem, and a problem they have been, and they're ruthless. I mean, Harry Reid comes out and calls, actually, as I read the article, one of the articles in the paper, he didn't so much even call us the terrorists, as what he did is he called the Bundys domestic terrorists. And a guy who's a senator from this state who is so concerned about these people couldn't even find the time to go over and see them and see if he could, make a resolution to this. Instead, they do things like that, which just amps it up and amps it up. And but I don't think they want a peaceful resolution to this anyway. So
Jerry, this is
my
Skip.
observation.
Yeah, this is Skip. You and I talked yesterday, and one of the things that had been rumored to have existed. You actually saw it, and I want to just turn this a little bit in a little bit different way. This whole thing is supposedly about conserving the land. That the federal government, the BLM, the Bureau of Land Management, is all upset because of these desert tortoises, and the land is being ruined by the cattle. And yet now the story is coming out. They actually crushed one of the tortoise dens and crushed all the live young that were there. But you saw the destruction that they've actually done to that area, and also there was a mass grave. Can you talk to us about that? Because I haven't received any pictures just yet.
Well, I haven't. We've got them downloaded, but I haven't been able to send them to. But I will send those to you. And first, we've got to get the scope of this country. It's got all kinds of little buttes in it, and it's pretty rugged terrain and pretty dry, except the basin of. There's a little river valley which the Virgin River runs through, which goes right through the Bundy's property. But when you get out in it, it turns into, which I'll send you some of those photographs, into some really, it's majestic, but it's brutally tough terrain. And what happens is the Bundys, they free range their cattle, and trying to imagine how big 600,000 acres is a little bit much for you to even have a conception of how big that is. But what happened is when the BLM came in and refused to let the Bundys back onto that property, which their great grandfather had paid in full for those grazing rights, is when they wouldn't let them in, what the BLM did is they put guards at all entrances to that, armed guards, and then they went in there and they had free range of cattle over that land. So I mean the cattle are scattered all over, and they went in, and the water lines that the Bundys had put in for decades ago, 40, 50 years ago, some more, to put up troughs for these animals because it's a high desert area, they went and broke the water lines. They cut up the water storage tanks and then rolled them down the hill. The Bundys, when they put all this stuff in, they camouflage painted them so that if people were out looking, they wouldn't see them, so that it wouldn't break the view of the property. And they tore the water up that the cattle would have to drink. And then what they did is they started separating the herds. They'd grab the cows and leave the calves, and then run them down and try to. They had the big compound over here, which I have gone through, but they didn't let me stop. They gave us a police escort through it. But and they run the cattle down there to that compound, and we're supposedly going to truck them out. But what we found, and I got a guy who's doing a documentary, which I spoke quite a bit in that, is that, and I told him there's a mass grave there. Well, he happened to get in there before with the Bundy family, because I sent him over so he could, and he filmed it. And what it was is it's a mass grave, kind of like Auschwitz, if you would, one of those big graves you'd see all the body parts sticking out, their arms and the legs, with the cattle, obviously it's all legs and calves parts and all that, because they only covered about 2/3 of it in with their excavator. And the rest of it, the open section was full of just dead cow bodies. And that's what they did is they took the herd over there and then they shot them. And they're missing about, as far as they can tell, but they haven't done an accurate count, probably about 300 head. And so on my journey, I went out the day before yesterday. We went out on a four-wheeler with one of their foremen and another cattle rancher in northern Nevada who's having the same problem. We went out and they showed us one of their prize bulls, which would have been for breeding purposes, that they've had forever. And what had happened is there was a round pin put up, and it wasn't at the compound; it was outside the compound, quite a ways out. And when they'd had that bull in there, you could tell that the bull had been in there. There wasn't any water trough or anything, but what you noticed inside there is a skid mark started. And there was no like the fence had been kicked or anything like that. So the bull obviously wasn't in a rampage. You have a 1,200, 2,000 pound bull in there. If you wanted to knock that thing around, he could, but he didn't. And because their animals will walk right up to you. So what we did is I followed that skid mark, and with that drag mark, if you will, I followed it about maybe 1.25 miles, somewhere around there. Right out through the open flat of that prairie, and there at the end of that was that bull who had been shot right between the eyes. and it was left there to rot. And that was one of the prize bulls. The reason they drug that bull off is because they didn't want the public or anybody seeing it over by that round pen that they had left, and so they just tried to go hide it after they shot it. And then we went out quite a ways on the other side of the ranch, and there was another bull that they had just shot, and it looked like they just used it for target practice with an automatic weapon, and they diced it up pretty good. And in those areas is what where the in that one particular area is where the tortoises that they're so worried about preserving have their habitat. And what I saw was truck marks from the guys you could see when they were running the cattle and moving things around, that they had backed over the tortoise dens, I guess is what you call them, caved them in. I had my hands inside of there actually, and two of the dens, and to see if I could find one of the tortoises, but the ground's pretty tough around here, and I wasn't going to go too deep in there because there's also rattlesnakes. But they had completely flattened those, and then they got off the road with their trucks, and they spun circles around it and backed in and ran over. They took I must have had electric sawzall or a chainsaw or something, and they cut a bunch of the protected species of brush that grows out here, I guess is what you'd call it, and cut that down to get it out of the way. I mean, they just drove in like they're on a construction site with no regard for anything. And the Bundys, when they drive, they don't back off the road because it's a dirt road. They don't back off of it when they're turning around. They stay on it and just do all the turns they need to get turned around. And they said, well, would get a $100,000 fine and 6 months in jail if we went off the road with the truck.
I guess you got to be with the BLM, huh?
Yeah, well, the BLM is what they did is they hired private contractors, and they spent $3 million doing it. I guess the cost of that whole operation was about $3 million, and I think the contractor might have been $1 million even to go round up this cattle. And they use helicopters and God knows what, and they're out there shooting them. But what it was calving season, so the baby calves were born. They'd take the mothers away, and once they could catch. And then the calves were left out there to starve, and they left some of them in tins to dehydrate. And the Bundys went out there and let them out, and then would bring them home so they wouldn't die. And they had to bottle feed them. And I know they've lost some of them, but then you see the cow, the mother, and she's in full milk, so her udders are full, the milk bag is full. There's no calf. And so what she ends up doing is getting a poisoning in her udders because there's nowhere for that milk to go, so it's not being drained off. And it's just a tragedy. I've never seen anything like it. It shows the ruthlessness and the lack of concern and just the inhumanity of treating an animal.
All right, Jerry, we're going to take 60 seconds. Stay on the line. We'll be right back, okay?
All right.
Thanks.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpack.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jean Shaheen said,
yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results.
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
there are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change.
Jean Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our health care coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
All right, we're back with Jerry DeLemus. Did we hear all that online because I left my mic on? Did everybody get that? I want Mike to repeat what he said because it was good. Let me turn you on first. I don't know which mic you're on anymore because all the headsets are screwed up. Go ahead.
My original mic.
Okay.
So Jerry, what you said about cruelty to livestock, to protected species, and starving the calves reminds me of the article about the story in Iron County, Utah, where they have so mismanaged the wild horse herds that not only are they abusing the ranchers, but they're also likely to have thousands of wild horses starving this summer in the dry conditions.
Well, the deer and such in the area, they'll feed off those water troughs as well. And, I mean, they've been accustomed to it because they've been there for, a generation or two. So the livestock knows where the water is, and so do the wild animals. They'll come in and try to get it. One other thing I wanted to bring up there, Mike, is that they have it's kind of like a round pin, if you know anything about horses, and it's kind of like a bunch of gates of tubular steel, and it makes a circle. Well, this one had a divider down the middle of it. Each section had a gate that was hooked onto a powerful spring, and the spring would the door could be locked open, and then they would have a trip lever that's tied to a rope that goes to some hay. So what they were doing is they were trying to trap the cattle to go in there, and they'd grab the hay. Once they got inside, they'd pull the hay to eat it, and then the doors slammed shut. Well, there was no watering mechanism in there whatsoever. So if the cattle were in there and left unattended, they'd dehydrate and die. But the odd thing is after BLM had pulled out, they had left those doors locked open. And so any animal that would have gone in there and tripped that, it would have been a death sentence for them. And these are the guys who were saying that the Bundys shouldn't be on this property because they need to protect these animals, when in fact the BLM, as obvious, had no regard, didn't care one bit about those animals, any of the animals, and not even the tortoise. And I got to tell you, it's really unnerving, and it's troublesome to know that you have people out there that our government is hiring and paying to do this type of damage to the citizens and their property. Something that this family's had, since 1878, I believe it was 1877. Their family's been on this property, and it's really wrong in so many ways. I went out to. And then there's the intimidation factor of what the Bundys have done. They're Mormon. They're a Mormon family, and which I didn't know when I came here because I didn't care. I just knew that when I talked to Mr. Bundy that he said he needed help, and I knew for whatever I was convicted to go. And here I shot off and came. But they've got their little ranch house. People say they're rich and blah blah blah. Got this little house. One-story house, the siding's not even finished in it, and I must have lived there forever. I mean, it's got to be, 50, 60 years old maybe, I'm guessing. But it's crowded with kids and grandkids and great-grandkids in there. And I believe there's 14 children, and I said 48, but Sue said she had heard 52, I think, grandchildren. Plus there's great-grandchildren. And they're a real close-knit family. They're always together. You walk in the door, and they're feeding you. It doesn't matter who you are. You should have something to eat, and they'll feed you. But as I noticed all the things in the house, there's nothing expensive or extravagant about their lifestyle. I mean, they have their horses. They ride around on cow ponies out here, as you'd see it. And if you watched any cowboy movie, that's who these people are. And they're all working, all the kids. They have their cowboy boots on and their spurs and their cowboy hat or a cap, and they go out and work the cattle. And although their area is much smaller now since the BLM has stuck their nose in it, and around that house, which it sits fairly off alone. It's got a little, like a little creek almost out in front of it, and what happened is the BLM snipers were setting up around that house, while this was all going on, they were keeping guns drawn and snipers aiming at that house with those kids. And the parents wouldn't let the kids outside to go play in there because they're afraid they were going to get shot. I had one of the moms come up to me, which I'm in full battle gear, and leaving the house once, and she grabbed me. She said, "Jerry, this is the first time that the kids have been able to play out in the water," and they're laughing and giggling. And I got to tell you, there's something wrong. There's something really going on that is wrong in our country, that a family can't let their children out of their house because the federal government's setting over these people who haven't raised a violent hand to them at all. There's no charges that they pointed a gun at them and they haven't, or raised a fist at them and they haven't. They're a gentle, good-natured, loving family, and they're slow-speaking. They're Western, and these people have to live in fear. Their kids have to live in fear, and that we have to come from New Hampshire and all kinds of other states of this country to stand guard over them so that they don't end up getting shot by these guys. And because there's no, I can't even think of what went through their minds that they thought that they needed to have snipers aiming at people in that house. I just can't. I'm a tactical thinking guy, and I can't think of a single reason. I'd never do it. I just don't know how you do it.
Right.
And,
So, Jerry, in your call to Sue early in the week, you mentioned that they were setting up snipers around you. Now, Harry Reid specifically accused you guys of having snipers to intimidate the BLM into leaving. I somehow think that was not the case, but why didn't you tell it in your words?
Well, first off, I want to say this about Harry Reid. He's a coward and he's a liar, and he's breaking his oath to the Constitution. And I actually challenged him on a video that somebody did last night to come call me a domestic terrorist to my face, because I told him, get within arm's reach of me and you make that accusation. I served honorably in the United States Marine Corps. I'm out here defending people that you who are terrorizing them, that there's a domestic terrorist of Harry Reid and him and the BLM. And I don't know what they've got cooking out here. I mean, I hear stories about it. There's some stories about him and his son out here that they've got other business deals going on with the Chinese. And I mean, you got to wonder how these guys get that rich in Washington. And a lot of it is through real estate deals. But Harry Reid calling us domestic terrorists is ludicrous. All we're doing is protecting these people. I was asked the first night I got here to go on guard duty. I mean, I pulled in and we had slept. I did the majority of the driving, so we went out and did guard duty. I got into the SAC for about an hour, and actually didn't even set our tent up. I was just on a cot. I was on a cot for an hour, and then the Bundys. One of their sons, Ryan, who is just a wonderfully nice man, pulled their stock trailer up in front of us, and they had 2 cow ponies in it. And they asked me if we could give them protection while they went out and tried to get some of the cows before they died. So that's what the Bundys were doing, is trying to protect the animals. They weren't doing it for the money. They were doing it because they're animals, and they don't want them to suffer needlessly. So we jumped in. I had 5 guys fully geared up. It looked like any other military operation, except for as a civilian truck. I had one other with me in the cabinet truck, and here we go down the road. So we're tearing down the road, and they're pulling off, and they're looking in their field glass and looking for cattle. And as I'm following that truck, and we're going down, I see that I'd seen the cowboys get in and the 2 horses in the back that are under saddle, and it dawned on me that these guys are just trying to go to work. And yet they have to ask me and other American citizens and other American patriots to be armed and to be able to follow them and protect them from our government so they can just go to work, so they don't get shot or killed.
Hey, Jerry, can you hang on for a little bit longer? I want to take another break, but we want to keep talking to you if you're available.
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so hang a second. We're going to take another 60-second break, and we will come back with Jerry DeLemus in Bunkerville, Nevada. There we go.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Steve McDonald here. You ever notice how Democrats like to create problems so they can then claim to solve them? Take Medicaid expansion, for example. Even if the federal government keeps its promise to New Hampshire to pay for most of it, it'll still cost New Hampshire taxpayers tens of millions of dollars more to provide inferior care and coverage to people who, for the most part, would never have needed it if Democrats hadn't reformed health care in the first place. That's right, that real expensive reform that doesn't care if it's only affordable if you act like you don't need insurance. Well, its number one claim to fame at this point is how many more people it forced onto Medicaid. And that's only because Obamacare kicks tens of millions of people off the plan they liked and were told they could keep but couldn't. So Medicaid expansion was always part of Obamacare for a reason. Democrats knew all along that the Affordable Care Act was unaffordable and they'd need to make Medicaid bigger and more expensive. So when people got their plan kicked to the health care curb, they could still sign up for something, even if it was something as crappy as Medicaid. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Rock Talk.
And we are back. This is Skip Murphy. I am joined by, a whole bunch of Groksters with Steve and Rick and Mike and Scott. And we are talking with Jerry DeLemus, who is from New Hampshire, but is out in Bunkerville, Nevada, at the Clive Bundy Ranch with a bunch of other patriots. And Jerry, you were telling us a powerful story at the very end where the cowboys who work for, or are part of his family, or work for him, are basically saying, folks, can you follow us because you are armed and we're scared to go out and just do our regular job to protect us against our own government. And you know, a lot of us are thinking, you know, this is not a good thing for us to be. In fact, Rick was starting to say this has gone way beyond the cattle and the cows. So, Rick, did you have an observation?
The thing that has struck me all along up until last Saturday is I was looking at the story, and I was trying to look at it with an objective eye, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me, this isn't about cattle anymore. This isn't about land. It's not about turtles. It's about the awesome power of the federal government being sicked on a single citizen. And I think that's the lens through which people are viewing this now. Is that a fair assessment, Jerry?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it definitely is. And I got to tell you something. When we went out the day before yesterday, out in that four-wheel drive little car, if you will, is there was a fella, and he's probably in his 70s. His name was Cliff. He's from northern Nevada. His family had their ranch going, and they'd used the land, cut a deal with the government for grazing rights, and they did theirs in 1862, and they've shut him down, and he's down from 600 head, which he started with, and it's generational farm ranch, mind you. He's down to about 100 head. And which really, I mean, you got to think about your the amount of money that you would make from it. I mean, you're going from 6 down to 1. I mean, that's a huge cut in income as well. So he told me we're riding, and everybody knows we're here from New Hampshire. I got to tell you, they all know that New Hampshire is here, and they are so proud and so thankful to all of you and us for coming. But he told me, he said, you know, if I run those cattle out there, the BLM told me if I put those cattle back on that land that my family's been using for those years, again, that they're going to throw me in prison. And I said, you know, I knew there were other stories out there because there's a lot of them, because they've run most of the guys like us out in place and put the corporate ranches. That's what they're doing, is they're allowing the corporate ranches to operate, and they're taking our land and then they're federalizing it so that nobody can use it except the government for what they want to do. And
Jerry, that's an important point.
He said, I'll give you one more at this. He said that he asked me, he says, Jerry, can I have your phone number? And I said, yeah, sure you can, Cliff. And he said, because in 2 weeks I'm letting my cattle back out on that land. He goes, will you help me?
Wow. You know, and I think Rick is got the point where the federal government has really starting to become not the governing, but the ruling. And you and I have talked about this before in the past, and I know you're there. But certainly those out west have an animosity that we don't necessarily share here in the Northeast, because the feds own so much of that land, 87% in Nevada, and almost the same thing in almost every single other western state. And how much is there of a push to say, enough is enough, return the land either back to the state or to give it to us who actually wish to conserve that land?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Bundy offered to, because what he did is he fired the BLM because they weren't upholding their end of the agreement. And they were doing lousy land management. He said they were doing a horrible job, so he offered to give the money to the state of Nevada to go ahead and for those grazing rights, even though he didn't think he owed it to him. He never believed that. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's kind of the conversations that we've had about that. But he was willing to pay it anyway, and just not to have trouble, but they wouldn't take it. And the concern out here is that the government's taking all their land. But don't forget in New England as well that they're taking a lot of conservation money, and they're setting up these little conservation zones, and they're taking these old farms, and they get conservation commissions, and it's backed with federal money, and they're taking these big farms. They're doing it there, and everybody out here knows. You want to talk about people who know what Agenda 21 is? These people know what Agenda 21 is because they know that's exactly what this is. It's funny because we come out here and we think we're so smart in New England, because we're always on these deals and we're going to meetings and all that. These people are living it, and they know exactly what it is. They had a fundraiser for the Bundys. There's a little stage and stuff down by the river, by the Virgin River across the highway, and there must have been, I don't know, a live band, and it's a well-known band. I don't know what their name is. They volunteered, and they came for nothing to play. And there must have been, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 people, maybe more there in support of them. And they were talking about land grabs. They were talking about an oppressive federal government, and they're all hooting and hollering, yay. They acknowledged us from New England, from the States, which I turned around. I was like, wow. But I walk through the crowds there, and they stop me, and they they shake my hand and say, thank you for coming, thank you for helping us. If you hadn't been here, and the other voice, obviously, is we don't know what would have happened. And we walk around. It's funny because we didn't have our rifles with us on this particular event, and when the gal stopped me, and she had her kids and her husband were there, and I said, and her son goes, well, where's your bigger gun? And I said, well, we didn't want to bring him in here because there's so many people in here, and we didn't want anybody being scared. And the mom looks at me and she goes, we feel better when you have them.
They know whereof they speak. Well,
yeah. Well, I got to tell you, these people are patriots, and they work hard. Working this land is tough business for them, and they love this country. And there's a lot of former military here, and then some that obviously there's those that aren't. But they love this country. They love this land. And I got to tell you, as I walked out there with Corey on that land, he'd take some sage or whatever it was and rub it and smell it, and he'd tell me what this was. He'd tell me when this happened. And they're just gentle people. Gentle. I mean, all their actions. It made me feel like a clumsy elf, to be honest with you. They're like I must barge through life, and they take it all in. They know every inch, everything that goes on. There's 600,000 acres. They can tell you a story about every lick of that land. And they took us up to a point. It was I think it's about 8,700 feet, and there's a TV station that's got an antenna up there. And it took us up there, and I got to tell you, that's a scary ride. And we looked over that vast 600,000 acre piece, and it's astounding. It was astounding. But the federal government can come in, and Harry Reid and his cronies can come in and go, oh, no, well, you don't get to have that anymore. And then start making all kinds of accusations about those people and their character. I got to tell you, if there was a problem with Mr. Bundy's character, he wouldn't have 3,000 people in a small community coming out to support him. Neighbors, friends, the people are coming in who have been associates of his and friends of his from all over. Some of them are up in Utah, some of them are out in other states, and they're coming together to support him. And on top of it, the whole community. My son Josh is out here with me, and one of the local Metro Police out here, because that's who runs it out here. He was going into a store, and one of the policemen saw him, and he came over to my son, and my son's going, uh-oh, and he's all in camis and stuff. He's got a sidearm on, and I don't know, I don't think he had his rifle because we don't really take those in the stores. But the policeman walked up to him, and he goes, you're from New Hampshire? He goes, yes, sir, that's right. And he grabs him and shakes his hand, and Josh is shaking his hand, and that police officer grabs him and pulls him in and gives him a hug. It says, thank you. Thank you.
Which just goes to show that the local police and sheriffs understand and respect the Constitution in a lot of cases. And that the feds have just lost all respect for the people, and which is why the people are losing respect for the federal government. This is a great way to end a country. So I get a little turn of phrase for you, Jerry. We like to twist words here, and after you mentioned the cow grave, I coined the word cowschwitz, which you can thank or hate us for. Seriously, we just put up a piece about the federal claims on the ownership of that land. And I'm thinking back, when those were territories, the federal government encouraged homesteading. They encouraged people like Clive and Bundy and their family to go out there to work, improve, and claim that land. And it's only since we've had these three-letter agencies started by FDR mostly that the federal government thinks it owns the land. And there's a piece here by a Persian American in Tennessee for the 10th Amendment Center. He put up an excellent article at benswan.com, and I've linked to it, about the real meaning of the Constitution and what the federal government can and cannot own without the consent of the states. And it ain't much.
Well, I want to share a little something else. I mean, obviously they're killing the livelihood of these people. They'll probably go after them in court and for whatever the cost they overspend as the government does, because of that the cattle on the hoof would have probably sold about $250 a head on the hoof. And but the federal government, because they're so thrifty, they spent $3,300 a hoof for the ones that they actually got, and to get those cattle out of there when they could have just let the Bundys sell them out of there, and it would save us millions of dollars as taxpayers if that had been the case. But I want to share a couple other things with you. I had one today. I had 4 yesterday. People who are out here tell me that they've lost their jobs because they're out here. And I tell them, go home, go get back to your job. They go, Jerry, we're sticking with you on this. This is the right thing to do, and we can't in good conscience leave. I had a talk last Sunday, and I had to get everybody together because the Ranger Service, which is out here, the own part of it, there were some real threats that they may be coming in. I'd watched myself drop a sniper team off through one of my scopes the night before. They inserted him, and then they were spotted up on the hill. So I called the whole group together, and we were quite a bit smaller than we are right now because we're growing. And I brought them together, and we normally take hands and pray, and I'll lead them in prayer in the morning. And so after that, I said, look, the chances are if we end up in a fight here, because we're not going to fire the first shot, militarily that's a fool's move. But as being a citizen here in this situation, we have no choice but to wait and to set ourselves up for them to be able to shoot us if that's the choice that they make. and then we can defend ourselves. But I think to have any integrity whatsoever, we have to let them take the first shot. And everybody here is fully aware of that. But I had to tell the people who have driven from all over this country out here, and they're of all ages, and there's women and their husbands, and some who had no firearms ever, never fired one, didn't have one then. I said, if we get into a conflict with the federal government, they're going to rain down a huge force on us. They've got billions and millions of dollars to spend on this, and they spend millions of dollars on this. And I know they're tapping our phones, and they've got everything going on that they need. The drones are over, the helicopters and the planes coming over and swooping down on us to film us. I said, you know what? If they come in full force and they don't want to talk, they decide, because we're not breaking any laws, mind you. We're not breaking any laws. We're here by invitation of the Bundys on their property, and we're not breaking any laws. We're not doing anything to break a law. That we'll probably all die here. It'll probably take every one of our lives. And I want you people to know that if you decide that you want to go home, and because you've all done more than enough, more than 330 other million Americans have done, is you can go home, and it's no harm, no foul, and none of us will think less of you. Not a one of them left. Matter of fact, what's happening is more coming. And I tell every one of them when they come. And I didn't ask for this position that I'm in. I had no intention of this. And I'm not even a militia guy. I'm a Marine. You guys know me personally. When I get out there and I talk, and I can't stand when things aren't being led and organized properly, so I'm a doer. I jump in and help. And they handed the whole caboodle off. I mean, there's a couple militia outfits down the road from there, real small. It's probably like 4 guys. We're not attached with it all. They don't want to come under the umbrella. But everybody else up here, they've come here. They just come here. And they've seen some of the videos I get people shaking my hand all the time saying, I saw that video, and I don't know what video they're talking about. And half the time I don't remember what I said. I just spell it out from my heart. Yeah. And because it's true. Hey, Jerry? They ask me how I say that. I go, because it's the truth. It's easy to remember.
Yeah. Jerry, we're getting near the end of this segment here because we've gone over our normal time. And I want to just end with a couple of observations. One, I think, once again, we're seeing another episode where the consent of the governed is being withdrawn from those that would govern. And also, are we starting to see a time when the government believes that it is the country, even though our elected officials, including Dingy Harry, swear fealty to the Constitution, but now the government thinks that it is above the Constitution, and they just don't understand that most of us don't care about the government, but we do care about the constitutional values. Jerry, you still there?
I'm listening. Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what did you think about that?
Well, we're getting a chopper coming in. This is well beyond politics. This is if you take the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and you read it, I got to tell you, how many boxes would you not check of complaints that our founding fathers had with the king? There's something wrong in America. It's drastically wrong that people have to live in fear. You can probably hear that bird coming in because he's coming in low. And I just got to make sure they're not inserting. And nope, they're not. And it's a Ranger for the Rangers. But they're going to fly right over us. Are you still there?
Yes, yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. That when we have to live in fear of our government, when we're not breaking any laws, there's something wrong. Because I'm going to tell you what I believe, and I believe what most of the people here, and even the people, all the people, our new family and friends here in Nevada, is that we're living in tyranny. And we've got to break that yoke of tyranny. It's not about the politics, whether Harry Reid's a Democrat. Nobody gives two hoots about that. What they do care about is his integrity, and is he fulfilling his oath of office? Is he looking out for the people in Nevada? He's not there to look out for the government's business, the federal government's business, just like the governor isn't when he's elected for the state. It's not their job to take care of the federal government and answer to them, or the sheriff, because Unfortunately, the sheriff get, I think it was $9 or $10 million a year in grants, so that's why they can't tick off the federal government, otherwise they'll cut those grants, so they own them. So what happens is these people who take an oath to live in the state, they take an oath to defend the state, they're hired to work for the state, their allegiance is turned from the state to the people in the state, it goes right to the federal government, and that's what the governor does, and that's what some of these sheriffs do. The problem is the citizens in this state are left out without any representation. They'll be able to find a judge somewhere pretty easily, I'm sure, because it'll be a federal court, Mike. You must keep that in mind. A federal judge will make a ruling, and the federal government will hold that case and charge that case against these ranchers, and they'll end up taking his 160 acres in the middle of this, and then the 600,000 acres that they have rights to graze their cattle on will be a non-issue.
All right, Jerry, we got to break in. We're going to end the segment. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning. Good luck out there.
Well, keep us in your prayers, will you, because it's a dangerous country we're living in right now. I want to say one other thing. If something bad does happen, I'm telling you, we will not be the aggressors in it. And if it does happen, I urge you guys, I'm telling you guys, you stand up and you scream, because this will be a Boston massacre.
All right, Jerry, thanks a lot. We got to go. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
All right, that's it. That's Grok Talk. You guys have a great week, and we'll be back next week.
Jerry was recently arrested by a small army of FBI TAC teams as a result of his presence at the Bundy Ranch during the standoff, and is being detained without bail pending trial. If you'd like to learn more about Jerry's arrest or the charges, or if you'd like to donate to help support his family and his legal bills, please visit patriotjerry.com. That's PATRIOTJERRY.com.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk. Rock Talk.
Skip is dialing the senator as I speak. Welcome back to Grok Talk.
Does that mean we have to fill?
No, yes, it does. Well, here, this is Saturday in the Park. I was going to say it's Saturday on the Grok.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, you're all set? Okay. All right. Very good. We're going to... Don't do that. There we go. People... Mike, discipline. Welcome back to Rock Talk. My name's Steve McDonald. I am here with Skip Murphy, Mike Rogers, and Richard H. Olson, Jr.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. And we are very happy to have on the line with us Senator Bob Smith. Senator, how are you this morning?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Hey, good morning, Senator.
Good morning to all of you.
It's great to have you on. We haven't had you on for a couple of months, but it's good to have you back.
I know it. I wish I could come on every day. You guys are great patriots.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to have you on. So, how's the campaign going?
Going well. We got we got the grassroots building, and the conservatives seem to be coming our way, which is great news. You know, the Tea Party folks and gun owners and Right to Life and so many other groups that are anti-tax groups and 9/12. We've met, with all of them along the line somewhere, and hopefully we can keep picking up the momentum. It's a grassroots effort against a lot of big money and the establishment. You know how that works.
Oh, yeah.
The establishment, yes.
So what's your calendar look like in the next week?
Oh, well, taking a couple of days off through the Easter Sunday, and then on the ground again at the latest Wednesday morning, maybe before that. But we'll be. I just need to get a little time. It's not time off as much as it is just planning and sorting out things for the next phase, which is between now and June, middle of June, when the filing ends, and we'll know who's in and who's out. But it's been really, really positive. It's just that the establishment, recruited Brown, brought him into the primary, as you know, and I can't seem to find anything that he supports conservative Republicans on. But I guess everybody has has an opportunity to look us over now. This should be an interesting fight.
Yeah, I have to tell you, Senator, I was just remarking to somebody yesterday. I said, there's only really two candidates in this race that have a national record on the Second Amendment: Scott Brown, Senator Bob Smith. Need I say more? I mean,
yeah.
Really?
Well, especially, I don't know, since you're on that subject, don't let me dictate your schedule or whatever you want to do, but on the subject of the Second Amendment, I mean, this latest outrage by Michael Bloomberg to spend $50 million to take on the NRA and the gun rights groups and saying he's going to make them afraid of us. This is very interesting. I was shocked I wasn't shocked that Bloomberg did it. I mean, if he's going to ban large Pepsis, he's probably going to be in favor of banning guns too. What the heck? That's just another little thing in his long list. But the interesting thing about Bloomberg is he had a real highfalutin fundraiser for Scott Brown when Brown was running for the Senate in Massachusetts, and he endorsed Brown. And the interesting thing was where the two reasons that he gave for endorsing him was, one, because he didn't vote Republican that often, and the other was because of his disagreement with the Republican Party on the issue of guns, on the Second Amendment, specifically the reciprocity law, which basically puts people in jail for coming into their state with a firearm that's legal in another state. So this is Bloomberg, and he's endorsing. He endorsed, Scott Brown. I don't know if he's endorsed him in this race, but he certainly did then. And then Brown's comment was even more shocking to me, that Bloomberg is a true independent who always puts progress over politics. So you read between the lines, and what Brown is saying, that he's going to restrict the rights of gun owners, and that's progress, but protecting the Second Amendment, that's politics. So if that's the way the gun owners of New Hampshire feel, which I know it is not, then we're certainly going to have to send Mr. Brown a message on September the 9th.
I couldn't agree more. The interesting thing is, in New Hampshire here, I'm one of the activists for Second Amendment issues, and whenever there's an opportunity that presents itself, we will post on social media a photograph of Scott Brown and Bloomberg together. We will highlight his record. We will quote his quotes he's made on so-called assault weapons ban, that faux term they like to use.
But and he was wrong on that. You're right. But, I read somewhere, and I could be wrong. I read so much here, but I thought I read somewhere where he was going to address the gun owners of New Hampshire, Brown, in the near future somewhere, and I cannot imagine them having any support for this guy. I mean, it's amazing. But hopefully, we'll see what he says. I guess he can make himself sound like Ronald Reagan when he talks. But you're right. There were only two senators that had any national action on it, and that was Brown and myself. There are other people in the race who are pro-gun, but I think the issue is, I can only bring what I bring to the table, and that is an 18-year record of an A-plus 100% rating from the Gun Owners of America and the National Rifle Association. And, we're going to have to rally around one to knock Brown off. If three of us split up the gun vote, if Karen Testerman and myself and Jim Rubin split up the gun vote, we're going to lose to Brown. I mean, we've got to be united on that. And, with all modesty, I think I'm the best person to do it because of my own background in terms of a proven entity on this subject.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we've set our pieces on Scott Brown, and believe me, we tried to give him a respectful hearing, and we couldn't get him to say anything. So that was the point when we dipped our barrel in the well of poison pixels and got to work. But I mean, if I thought that he could A, hold 70 or 80% conservative line, and B, guarantee to beat Jeanne Shaheen, I wouldn't be so anti. But I'm not so sure he's guaranteed to beat Jeanne Shaheen, and I am sure he's going to hold a conservative line. So what we're looking at here is, we've got three fairly decent conservatives here. We agree with all of you on most things and disagree with most of you on odd things. And this is about getting our readers to be as well informed as possible. we almost need a pre-primary to which the participants would agree to go all for one and one for all on the results. I don't know if we can construct that, but in the meantime, you've told us what you're all about with the Second Amendment, Senator, and we're very grateful for that. There's obviously a few people that object to the fact that you changed your party affiliation briefly. And I don't see a whole lot wrong with being independent, by the way, when the party doesn't back you. Basically, what's your main selling point here, aside from strong Second Amendment support, to pull New Hampshire conservatives and also the youth and the libertarians onto your bandwagon?
I think I'll answer that directly. Quickly, 30-second response to your point on leaving the party. The Republican Party platform, I agree with almost 100%. I can't think of anything I disagree on. It wasn't the platform. I left because people like Scott Brown were not then, but now. But Scott Brown type Republicans who were leading us astray, going away from the issues and caving to Bill Clinton. And I wanted to make a point that if we do that, we're going to sacrifice our power, our incumbency, if you will, and we will lose the support of those rank and file people out there across the country. And that's exactly what happened. We were caving in on guns, we were caving in on the life issue, we were caving in on a number of issues, taxes, spending, judges, all down the line, and it was just very frustrating, and that's exactly what Ted Cruz and others are dealing with right now, Rand Paul and others, and Mike Lee, they're all dealing with the same issue right now. It's a minority within a minority. This is what we have to change. So as far as what I would do on other issues, look, there are so many. If you go down the line, and you have to compare yourself with Brown because he is the first step. I have to win the primary in order to face Shaheen. But if I could contrast it real quickly and very simply, you have Scott Brown and Jeanne Shaheen in the Liberal Democrat Party being anti-gun. I'm pro-gun. You have Scott Brown and Jeanne Shaheen in favor of Dodd-Frank, which is a regulatory nightmare on small business, specifically financial services, like small community banks and people who are doing the financial services throughout the state and the country. He voted for that along with Shaheen, and I'm opposed to it. He voted 62% of the time with the Democrats as a U.S. Senator. I voted 98.5% of the time with the Republicans as a U.S. Senator over 18 years. He did it over, 62% over 2 years. So, you go down the line on these issues, not to mention the right to life, and which he's opposed to the party platform on that. And, there's so many issues. I just don't understand why why the National Republican Party pushed so hard at the establishment level to get him there. If he gives us a vote for leadership, okay, but what do you win? If you're going to put somebody in there who's just going to give you a vote on leadership and then vote against you 62% of the time, that's not good, obviously. So, and the business about him winning, that's nonsense. Scott Brown will not win. If he's the nominee, he will not win. The only way the Republicans win is when they stick to their principles of less spending, less regulation, more freedom. That's what this race is about. It's the central planners, the kind that Jeanne Shaheen and Scott Brown want to run your life, take your guns, do your, increase regulations, increase taxes, versus freedom, the right to have your children grow up in freedom. He does agree. We do agree. Brown and I do agree on the health care issue, on Obamacare. We both want to repeal it. However, he did vote for Romney Care, which was the forerunner to it. So you wonder whether it's the politics of convenience now that everybody's opposed to it. He's opposed to it. I don't know. That's for him to tell you. But I just believe that if we want to win and do something to change the country, instead of kicking the can down the road and spending more and more money and getting more and more regulation and less freedom, if you want to change it, then I'm the guy that's going to do it.
Okay, Senator, we're going to take 60 seconds. Stay on the line, and we'll be right back.
Senator Jean Shaheen said, if you like your current health plan, you can keep it. That's not true, Senator. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have been kicked off their insurance plans. Hospitals in Rochester, Concord, and Portsmouth, they aren't allowed to provide care under the exchange. Senator, you were wrong in your comments. You should apologize for your misleading remarks. I'm calling Senator Shaheen at 750-3004 and telling her I want my doctor back. You should too.
Paid for by saberpack.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
All right, we're back with Senator Bob Smith.
Well, Senator, you sound like us. Burn the party down and put in some people that will actually vote the party line instead of people that say they represent the party and won't vote the party line.
Well, party line when the party line is correct. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not a party guy all the way. I mean, there are Republicans who have gone astray, to say the least, such as our illustrious Supreme Court guy, John Roberts, who gave us the Obamacare with his silly vote. But you know, Republicans aren't always right, but what I meant by that is to say that on the traditional conservative values of our party, we got to stick together, otherwise we lose.
Absolutely. You know, going back to the Scott Brown coming with hat in hand to the gun voters here in New Hampshire, I'm very well tied in with that particular constituency, Senator, and I can tell you right now, a lot of them are under the belief that he's coming to try and get that vote. And he is a fast talker. I watched him work Theo's in Manchester, and, you know, he's pretty slick. I call him Slickster. And as far as the gun voters go, they're believing that a leopard doesn't change his stripes. So, you know, he can come and he can make his case, but I believe this is going to be more of a showcasing of Scott Brown than it is him making his case.
How uncomfortable is he going to feel in a room full of all those armed people?
Yeah, not to mention it's people like me that are going to be asking the questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, on the reciprocity issue, basically he's supporting people being put in prison.
Yeah.
For carrying a weapon. If you carry your weapon from here into Massachusetts, Massachusetts will arrest you for having your weapon, which is legal in New Hampshire, and it's bizarre. And I mean, I don't know how anybody who supports the Second Amendment could support this guy. I mean, I don't know what my concern is. What line has he got prepared for you? I mean, he's coming in. I give him credit for coming in and speaking. I mean, that takes guts. I mean, but the question is, what is he up to? And he'll probably have a good line for you. I hope it's not good enough that you'll swallow it. But
Senator, this is Skip, and I'm going to switch the topic just a little bit. Instead of just running, let's assume that you've already won the general election and you are back down in D.C. We watch the Inside Baseball not only here in New Hampshire but also down in D.C. as well. My question is, who would you be caucusing with? Because there's all these, well, there's a caucus for this issue, a caucus for that issue, and all of this. But as I look at things, I look at the political spectrum within the Senate, and I go, which bunch of folks would you be fitting in with better than others? You know, there's the leadership kind of folks, there's the Tea Party kind of folks, there's this, that, and the other thing. Where would you be fitting in?
Well, of course, I dealt with this when I was in office before, where you basically were a minority within the minority, or if the Republicans had control of the Senate, a minority within the majority, which is unfortunate. To be specific, guys like Mike Lee of Utah, Rand Paul of Kentucky, Jeff Sessions of Alabama, Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma, Ted Cruz of Texas. These are the guys that I would be aligned with, for not only philosophically but also operationally. I mean, we need, if we don't do what these guys want to do and do it soon, we're going to lose our country. And I feel bad. I've talked to almost all of them. I don't want to be specific about who I spoke with, but I can assure you that I've spoke with most of the names that I just gave you, and those guys are very, very frustrated. It was the reason why probably the Jim DeMint left and went to Heritage. It's frustrating to be, the Senate is a delaying organization, and you get impatient because you want to make change. And they know, as I know, that if we don't make change soon and stop kicking the can down the road, especially on the budgetary garbage that goes on where you pass a 5-year budget, put all the cuts in the 5th year, and then next year pass another 5-year budget and put all the cuts in the 5th year and then brag about all the cuts you made in the budget that you passed. Or even worse, you propose a 5% increase in the national budget, cut the 5% back to 3% and claim you had a 2% cut. This is the kind of game, these are the kinds of games that are played in D.C., and I know what's going on, and I would be a very senior member because of my past experience in the Senate. So I would be able to join these guys and be very effective, hopefully we're going to get more and more like us in the Senate down the road. And they're not going to be able to throw me in the corner and say, okay, well, you're a junior senator, shut up and, listen and learn, and so be it. We got to remember that there's a lot of debt that has piled on this country since I left office last time in 2003. So it isn't just Democrats that are doing it to us. So we need to correct that, and I'm a strong advocate of the Tea Party. You know what frustrates me is when some people in our party are so hostile about the Tea Party element. I mean, when I ran in the last time in 2002, there were no Tea Party elements here, but I like to say I was kind of Tea Party before Tea Party was cool with what I said about the party when I left briefly for a few months to make a point. And I welcome people like that. These are fiscally conservative people who care about the debt we're leaving our children. I've met with hundreds of them in the last 3 or 4 months here in New Hampshire, all over the state. They're fantastic people. They care. They really care. They want to change. They don't want to just go down and kick the can down the road, be it a Democrat or a Republican. And they're wonderful people, and they're dedicated and committed patriots, and I'm proud to have their support. And I don't understand why anybody in the Republican Party establishment would want to kick these people out or keep them from becoming a part of our team. They are what's going to change the country, and really true change, not the Obama change, but real change that matters to save our country, to save our freedoms, and to basically stick to the Constitution. That's what they're about, and that's what I'm about. So I welcome their support.
Right. In fact, the reverse is true. They get angry with us when we suggest that we might not support their worthless candidates. They expect our blind allegiance and support to the Republican Party, and they resent the fact that we actually have views which are effectively their party platform.
I don't understand it. You're right. That's exactly correct. And they say, they actually say that not only that we don't want you, we don't want you involved, and we're somehow roadblocks to bipartisanship and all that. Well, bipartisanship is fine on certain issues. When you get to, as Reagan said, you fight like the devil to get the whole loaf, and then if at some point you have to get a half of the loaf, we'll take it and come back and get the other half tomorrow. But the point is that that's not what they're about. What they're about is it's what I call the good old boys, the old bulls. That's the network. Get what we can get. I remember a Republican senator who's now deceased one day coming into so I'll protect him from, because he can't defend himself, but he said he came into one of these conference committees one day. He was a Republican. He was the chairman of the conference because Republicans had control. So we had a conference committee now which was going to dole out the money. He slammed his fist down on the table. He said, I want $250 million for this project in my state, and he named the project, and he said, when I get it, when you guys decide to give it to me, I'll come back in the room, start the meeting. And he got up and walked out. Now, that's the way things are going on down there, and I'm not going to put up with it. And I know that guys like Mike Lee and Rand Paul and others who feel the same way, they need help. And we need to turn that minority in a majority into a majority in the majority if we're truly going to change America and restore our freedoms and protect our Constitution. And with the greatest respect, because I respect anybody who runs for office, but I have the greatest respect with Scott Brown, he's not going to do that. And I hope that the voters can see that he's not going to do it. Anybody who would vote for Dodd-Frank or something as repulsive as that is to Republican values, strangling small business, and be against the Second Amendment, this guy is not going to change things in the direction that we want them changed.
Quick question, Senator. There are several things that people will talk about during the campaign, and I'm going to twist it a little bit. What are the three topmost things that you would do that we could hold you accountable to, that you would be willing to sacrifice the rest of your political career for? A number of Democrats did that for Obamacare, where they said, we believe this is the right thing for our ideology, and they voted for it, and they got kicked out. But what kinds of things would you be doing for liberty and freedom that we could measure you against?
Well, that I do respect them for that, even though I disagree with them 100%. I respect them for standing up for what they believed in. When I used to debate Ted Kennedy and Barbara Boxer and others when I was there, they stood up for what they believed in. They weren't squishes. They believed in what they believed. I believe they were wrong, but we had our fights, and so you have to respect that. But I think to go to your point, we are losing our freedoms. We must stand up and say, are these pieces of legislation that we're passing constitutional? I mean, if they're not constitutional, we ought not to be voting for them. And first, and secondly, let's read. Let's have time, reasonable to read bills, so that we can make an intelligent decision on them. So I think if you want an answer where I could be where people could feel comfortable, who are Tea Party folks or libertarians, as you mentioned earlier, who believe that in more freedom and less government, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to vote for anything. I'm not going to vote for anything that would provide more restriction on our freedoms and more government to control our freedoms. Specifically, repeal Obamacare, try to get the debt and get the budget balanced, I could support a balanced budget amendment if necessary. We shouldn't need one, but if that's what it takes, I'll do it. And also promote good growth policies by eliminating the capital gains tax, cutting tax brackets, tax rates, and so forth, to bring down the regulation and tax burden that's on most of small business in America, so that by doing that, you will produce more revenues coupled with reasonable cuts, and we'll get to that path where they'll meet, and the budget will be balanced, and then we can begin to pay down the debt. One other specific... I
got to interrupt you, Senator, because
okay.
We're out of time. Could you give us some contact information real quick? You got about 20 seconds.
Bob Smith for USSenate.com. Bob Smith for USSenate.com.
Okay, my music's not playing. Oh, there it is. Well, Senator Smith, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. We'll probably have you on again.
All right, look forward to it. Thank you.
For now, you have a great weekend.
You too. Happy Easter.
All right, bye-bye. Okay.
Hi, this is Earl Hall from The Earl Hall Show, and you're listening to Grok Talk.